Good morning, good morning. I'm out in my backyard today for our isolation survival guide meditation, and we're going to get to chit chat. We're going to talk science a little bit because I'm a nerd and I like that stuff. So hopefully the audio is okay. I decided to bring my little headset with me so you could get a better idea of what I'm actually saying out here, just in case it wasn't audible. So we'll start with a little bit of maybe a prayer or maybe just a little bit of awareness for us. And just for today, if I feel my compassion for those who suffer, I will honor my feelings and allow them to pass. Just for today, I will refocus myself on my contribution and the things that are within my control. If you see me looking off camera, it's because I have my notes. I get nervous too, a lot, even when I'm about to guide meditation. But anyway, last night as I was writing up my notes, I was thinking about a commercial that I heard on the radio station, and it was one of the pastors that goes to talks a lot with K-Love, which is one of our stations down here in the South. And this wonderful pastor was giving an explanation of how to work with your congregation. And he's saying some people are thermostats and some people are thermometers, and how we wanted to err on the side of being a thermostat. If you think about what a thermometer does, all it really does is take the temperature of everyone around them. A thermostat would have a greater opportunity to take the temperature. It knows where the congregation's at. It knows what kinds of energy it's encountering. But rather than staying there with that energy and just participating in it, it has the ability to uplift people. And so in that way, with regard to energy, we want to be more of a thermostat than a thermometer. And so today, since we're talking about the taxation of being isolated here, for the purpose of putting together this little segment we're about to do, I looked at it as a trifecta. So presently, we're not encouraged to go to places that would normally lift us from one feeling state to a better feeling state. It doesn't really matter if we'd qualify them as good or as bad. What matters is that we were showing up to these places because it gave us some kind of upliftment. Presently, we're getting to practice stabilizing ourselves at a higher vibration, all on our own. It's similar to when you were a kid or when you were in college, and maybe you'd do a couple of practice problems and the teacher would guide you through it, and everyone would throw in their 2 cents of how to solve the problem. And then you would have several problems that you had to practice on your own, so you had your independent practice. That's what we're doing right now. And this requires a lot of energy. It requires a lot of focus to be that thermostat. My pro tip, one that I must use for my own wellness, is focus on yourself. Everyone says that. But if you can get the energy right within yourself, your surroundings will also take care of themselves. You will have become that thermostat. And even if it's not instantaneous, a lot of us are quarantined either completely alone or the total other end of the spectrum where you're with maybe a lot of other dynamics at play. It might not be immediate, but if you take care of you, at least you will be okay. Our second thing, many of us are missing the physical touch of other people. I'm quarantined with a roommate. I'm quarantined also with her dog. So that's been really enjoyable for me, but there are also long stretches of time where I'm completely alone. She still works, so thank goodness, one of us. But it's not a secret that humans need touch in order to thrive. Just anecdotally, I don't know the science behind this, but they were testing babies, I believe, and they were determining that at 4 touches per day, these babies were able to baseline survive. They were able to stay alive. At 8 touches, this is where these babies started to turn and go from, maybe below average health to now they're healthy. And at 12 touches per day, that is where these babies began to thrive. Is it the only factor? Of course not, but touch is really important for us. And third, in our trifecta, it's especially challenging for us because we're now having large chunks of time that we probably didn't have in the past when we were reporting to jobs that consumed those large chunks of time that we're now not working them. And so this is a choice point. We get to choose to go internally or to numb out. And I'll just say, in my own healing journey, there's no wrong amount of time to disconnect or even dissociate. That's a tool for survival. So even if it ends up being where you're able to go internally, but it's so uncomfortable you can only sit there for a couple minutes and then you disconnect, that's part of your practice too. Next time you come in, stay a little bit longer, then go out of it. That's a normal flow. So that's totally okay if that's where you're at. For many of us, that internal environment is not pleasant. It's a hostile one. That the voice or those voices that are within us in that internal environment are voices that can often be really critical. They're not tamed. Often they're borrowed voices, so they lack boundaries, they lack kindness. It's almost as if you were teaching a class for the first time, you would teach your teacher's class until you developed your own style. So I'm a yoga teacher. When I first started out in 2013 and 2012, I would teach my teacher's classes. The same thing with dance. I started teaching with dance when I was 23. I got hired on as an adjunct. And I would teach my teacher's class, even down to the point of mannerisms. You ever notice how your teacher does weird things and then you're like, ooh, now I'm doing that thing too. So these are normal things to happen to us. But then beyond that, unlike our inner voices that haven't taken our new form, we've gotten stuck there. So it requires a little bit of practice, which leads us into our meditation and what we're going to be doing today. For us to counteract this trifecta, we're going to practice dipping into a state of greater peace so that we can practice a higher vibration. Are we going to cement it today? I don't know, maybe. Probably not. But we can all get there. All we're really doing together as we meditate is manipulating a brainwave state. We're moving from a really active brain to a more relaxed brain. We are going to use our own hands to palpate our bodies. You're going to touch your body today. You're going to get a little massage if you've been missing out on that. My spa's been closed for like a month. We're going to use our hands so that we can practice down regulation. All that means is that we're practicing relaxation. And we're going to find that there is another inner voice that requires our quiet. It requires our stillness, and all of us can tap into it. There's nothing really that special about it because we can all go there, and there are moments where we go there every day. We just need to be quiet enough and still enough and relaxed enough. That's the trick. When we do it mindfully, we dip into these relaxed states and we enter brainwave states that are very suggestible. We actually go there when we listen to music or when we are kind of just dozing off in front of the TV. Got to be careful what you put in there. But when we're in this suggestible state, we can remove the programming of that hostile voice and reprogram in the use of our own voice, of our own soul. This is how we use meditation to stabilize ourselves at a higher state. We can practice listening to and practice refining our communication with that more authentic voice, a voice that is more purely our own higher essence. So we're going to start. If you have some time, hang around at the end. If you're catching the playback on YouTube, I'll put the timestamps in the video if you want to skip around. But afterwards, we're going to talk about habits, how to form habits, and what a keystone habit is. So if all is well in your world, start to close the eyes. Take a couple of deeper breaths, knowing that we can breathe into the belly, and when we soften it like a cow in a pasture, it tells our body it's safe to relax. Shoulders sink and soften. My jaw begins to relax. I'll find some softness in my upper lip and in my lower lip. And then as we begin to ground down, start to bring your awareness to the bottom of your body. Any place that for you is in contact, supported by a surface underneath you. So that might be your feet, or it might be your sit bones. Take a big breath of relief. And if all is well, start to rub the hands together. Really, really basic form of self-soothing. Rubbing the hands together. Hopefully, if we're going to touch our bodies, you've been washing your hands. And then take one of your hands up to the opposite shoulder and start to roll that shoulder around. Maybe you're able to find some knots or some trigger points. Give a little pressure into them. If they don't dissolve completely, that's okay. Taking a couple more shoulder rolls. And then lowering that arm, crisscrossing yourself onto the other side, rolling out the other shoulder, pressing into those points that need your attention. It's really common to hold tension. I've noticed it in my own body without being able to go out and hug people. I'm carrying a lot more up here. Let me know how your body feels. One more big breath. And then taking your fingers to your temples, couple little circles here, being gentle with yourself, giving just enough pressure that you can feel it. And moving on to the jaw, finding those places of tension in the jaw. You can use your fingertips or you can use your thumbs. See if you can let the jaw hang. Massaging out the jaw, even getting the point where the jaw starts to join with the neck, right under your ear. Again, keeping that jaw soft It'll often take a little bit of practice in becoming aware of which body parts are tightening up and when they're doing it. We have the time now, right? Hopefully you have some time to yourself. So then taking your hands onto your chest, the muscles of the chest run horizontally. So just running your fingers along that muscle, starting close to your sternum at the center, and pressing the fingertips along the muscle into this divot. Maybe if you're wearing a bra, maybe it's a bra strap, maybe you don't wear a bra, I don't know. Another place where we store tension. You'll oftentimes find that tension gets stored in patterns, and the big places to store tension are your hips and your chest, similar anatomy, and in the jaw. Taking it to the other side of your chest, gently pressing into the muscles and savoring it. This might be one of the limited bits of touch that you get today. So we're aware of that. We're having our time of stillness and seclusion. Many of us are sequestered. Little massage. Maybe you find some knots, that's okay. Be gentle with them. A couple more breaths here. We're going to move to our bellies next. Pressing into the belly. If you've ever seen a cat kind of knead the ground, that's what we're doing now. Seeing if you can keep the belly nice and soft. So, in yoga therapy, if you are a client that has a difficult time relaxing, someone who maybe self-qualifies as being more type A, this is the one you want to take home. Maybe do a little bit more often. Practice keeping that belly soft. That's how we tell our body it's time to relax. And then legs on the thighs. Gentle touches for the thighs. Notice what kind of speed or what kind of tempo you've chosen to brush the thighs. In my body, faster usually means more stress. Doesn't matter where you're starting out, this is all baseline. Take a couple more. My favorite is coming up next. And then choosing one of your calves. I'll turn my leg out to the side. I'm able to find this big bulbous calf muscle. And as I press into the side of it, I'm looking for the bone in my calf, the one that runs down the side of my calf. This is the inside of my leg. And just taking your thumb behind the bone, you'll find a space between the bone and the muscle that carries a lot of tension. You might give yourself a little calf raise. Notice how it changes the sensation. Tend to be very achy and a little bit sore when I press into this one. Take your time with it. All the way down the length of the calf. Your body might be telling you to maybe revisit later if you're getting a lot of tension in there. Mine tends to be right up in there. I'll give myself an extra one. And then we'll move on to the other side. Again, inside of my leg, I can find this bulbous muscle. I can find the bone that I'm looking for. And then just behind the bone, I'll start to press into that space between the bone and the belly of the muscle. Maybe giving myself a little lift and lower. Are you finding one side tighter than the other? The other side is tighter on me. Take a moment to stay curious. Couple more. I think a lot of times, even when we're cued to touch our own bodies, we tend to stay in the northern hemisphere. It's important to come down to the south. This is our base. This is where we get all of our grounding from. So we're going to take one more. You get to touch your own feet now. I hope that's okay. I'm going to palpate along my plantar tendon. So if you flex your toes back, you'll find this tendon that kind of maybe sticks out. It probably doesn't stick out on everyone, but it does stick out on me. And I'll start by pressing my thumb into the base of my heel. So I'll show you my foot. Here's my heel. This is where I'm pressing. I'll use my thumb. I'll point my foot. I'll flex my foot. Be gentle with yourselves. I'm walking out now toward the toes. Along my Achilles tendon, I should be able to get 6 or 7 of these lengthwise. If you flex back your toes, you'll get a little bit more stretch. So this is a tendon, it's not a muscle. Tendons can be reset to the size that they were already at. They can't really be lengthened too much or stretched out longer than they're intended to be. But do take a couple of presses onto that tendon, flexing the foot, point the foot, press onto the tendon, flex the foot, reset. Coming onto the other side when you're ready, I'll point my foot, I'll find that space just forward of my heel on the Achilles tendon, on the plantar tendon, flexing the foot. So I've been up for a while. I've been walking around barefoot, or else I'd turn my foot to you. They're pretty dirty at this point in the day. Taking a couple more. Point the foot, press, and then flex it, find the length. When you're finished, settle the legs back down. Now you have another reason to go wash your hands. And we'll conclude our meditation with a couple of breaths together. Inhaling deeply into a soft belly, draw the shoulders up to the ears. Exhaling, softening the shoulders back and down. Couple more breaths, big inhale. Exhale, rolling it back and down. Couple more breaths, big inhale, lift. Big exhale, lower. 2 more in your own time. So my friends, that concludes our meditation. If you'd like to hang out for a little bit longer, I'll be talking about habits, habit formation, and keystone habits. But if this is where we part, gently taking your hands to your chest. Option to bow your neck, acknowledging your beautiful body, your brilliant mind, and your radiant spirit. I love you so very much. If you're staying, please stay. If it's time for you to go, until next time. Blink. If you are able to stay, we're going to move on to keystone habits and habit formation. So, since we are isolated with maybe some more free time, keystone habits tend to be really, really helpful. A keystone habit is a habit that when you put it in place, it gives way to other good habits. So I'll give you a couple examples. My keystone habits are sleeping well. When I sleep well, my schedule is roughly 11 to 7. Sometimes it's a little bit earlier than that. When I sleep well, I consider this my keystone habit because when I wake up, I know I'm going to be refreshed. I know I'm going to be up at the same time. It lends its way to some really great routines that I can keep in place. If I've slept well, it's very likely I'm going to eat well. It's very likely that I'm going to do some kind of workout because I'm going to be energized. Sleeping is one of my keystone habits. When it goes smoothly, everything falls into place behind it. My other keystone habit is meditating in the morning. If I wait too long, my day gets a little bit wonky, so it has to be within the first 40 or so minutes start time of when I wake up. If I meditate in the morning, I'm very likely to go outside, to make better choices about who I interact with and what I'm saying to them. Don't always say the perfect thing. If I meditate, that's one of my keystone habits. The day tends to go much more smoothly than if I were to leave it out or save it for a later time. So, on the topic of habit formation and creating habits, all habits come with a loop. If you were to really hone in on one of your habits, you would notice a pattern, which is great because that means that we can recreate things. Every habit has a following pattern. It starts with a cue, it's followed by a routine, and then finally we get some kind of reward, even if it's just chemical. Most of the rewards are just chemical. So it's a cue, a routine, and a reward. Here's an example. I might have a habit of smoking in the car. I don't, but this is an example. My cue to my body would be sitting in my car. My routine would be starting the engine, turning on the radio, and lighting that cigarette. My reward is nicotine rush, the feeling of satisfaction that I've indulged a desire that I had. These habits loop around because the reward that we get from it, chemical or otherwise, reinforces the positive outcome of that cue and that routine, which is why it becomes really difficult sometimes to break a habit. I'll have to do another video on that. It's a little bit trickier, but absolutely possible. We all break habits every single day, and we can all form brand new ones as well. Here is a second example of a habit, maybe a good one that you'd like to implement in your own life. And this is a habit of meditating with your friend in the morning. My cue might be waking up. My routine would be calling that friend. And you start your meditation. The reward that you get is the feeling of connecting with your friend, appreciating him or her. Your meditation feels really good. If you like meditating, come back here Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday mornings. And then you get to share the news and what's happening with your buddy. So, if you are someone that wants to create a new habit or even a keystone habit, that one that's going to really be a strong pillar in your life, that umbrella under which other good habits can rest, think about, you could even write it down, think about what your cue would be. How will I know to initiate this habit? How will I know to start practicing? Fun fact, if you start today, we have like 21 more days of quarantining as a minimum, which is plenty of time to have a really solid habit in place by the time we reemerge into the world as healthy, healed people. We hope. We'll see. Think about what you want your cue to be. For me, I couldn't just have a cue of waking up in the morning. That wouldn't be enough to get me to call someone. I would need to probably set an alarm in my phone, or set my meditation timer so that it goes off at different intervals and reminds me to do my habit that I'm practicing. Think about which cue you want to have in place, and how you're going to get yourself started with practicing your habit. Next, you'll have to think about what kind of routine you'll want to do. If it's something like meditation, you might go into that corner in your room that's a little bit more peaceful. You might have a bolster or a pillow already set out there waiting for you. And then think about also what you want your reward to be. It might come with its own biochemical reward in your brain of dopamine or a serotonin boost. But you'll want to make sure that you're incentivized to do your habit. So if that's not enough for you, plan it out that you can get yourself some kind of reward. Same thing with working out. I've even heard of people sleeping in their workout clothes the night before. That's a fascinating cue to wake up to that you certainly could do. So try on a couple of examples for size. Write out for your new habit what you want your cue to be, how you're going to enforce this actual start of the habit loop. Write out what you want the routine to be, and decide on a reward. If you think that the biochemical perks are going to be enough, that's great. If you're going to need something else to keep you incentivized, do that for yourself. That's a kind thing to do within reason. Don't go eat a whole bag of tortilla chips if your goal is weight loss, but give yourself some kind of reward. All right, friends, we've been on for quite a while together. If you're just joining now, or if you missed bits, I will have a playback on IGTV. I'll also have one uploaded onto YouTube with with some markers in it. We talked about a lot today. We talked about the trifecta of isolation and how it affects us. We got to do some palpation massage. It felt really good. And we talked about habits. So if any of those topics interest you, please go and watch the playback. And I love you all so very much. You're the highlight of my day. I love you. Until next time.